Coming up on Global Business, a Chinese central bank official says there's no deflation in the country despite a mild decline in consumer prices in recent months. Germany unveils its China strategy, stressing no desire for decoupling but the need to reduce economic dependence. China says Berlin's de-risking anxiety will be counterproductive. Many Chinese cities have developed innovative ways to boost the nighttime economy by combining business with culture, tourism and sports. From CGTN headquarters in Beijing, this is Global Business. I'm Zhu Jufeng. China's central bank official says on Friday that at a press conference that there's no deflation in the country despite a mild decline in consumer prices in recent months.
The Chinese economy is not in deflation, and we don't see any risk of that for the rest of the year. With reasonable money supply, stable consumer confidence, and continued incentives, we are confident that demand will further catch up. The consumer price index could start to rebound as soon as August. We're shooting for 1% of annual inflation by the end of the year.
PBOC Vice Chief Liu Guoqiang noted the fast growth of the broad M2 money supply as well as continued recovery of the macroeconomy are both the opposite of what usually happens in a typical deflation. Liu said the central bank will sustain its funding support for the private sector, growing economy, tech innovation and housing markets. Meanwhile, Liu mentioned that China's cross-border capital flows are basically balanced and the country will prevent sharp fluctuations in the yuan. China will maintain a prudent monetary policy and increase financial support for key areas in the national economy. This is according to a recent article written by People's Bank of China Governor Yi Gang. The central bank chief said that China's monetary policy regulation should prioritize domestic targets. The country will maintain proactive interest rates in line with potential growth. It won't flood the market with excessive liquidity in order to prevent out-of-control inflation and market volatility. He added that China will improve the marketization of interest rates, as also it will create a favorable environment for exchange rates to be determined by the market. In the meantime, China will also make efforts to stabilize market expectations and reduce costs for enterprises. Indonesian President Joko Widodo has called for partner countries of ASEAN, the Southeast Asian nations bloc, to seek win-win solutions instead of a zero-sum approach. President Widodo was addressing the ASEAN Regional Forum in Jakarta. He said ASEAN must not become an arena for competition. Indonesia chairs the bloc this year and hosted the ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting for 2023, which concludes today. During the past 4 days, foreign ministers of the bloc and partner countries, including China, Russia and the US, have met for bilateral and multilateral talks. Moving on to other headlines we're tracking at this hour from across Asia. The Bank of Japan unveiled details of how it will conduct the Governor Kazuo Ueda's flagship review of its past uncontroversial monetary easing steps. The first workshop will be held in December. South Korea's economy remained in a state of downturn for the 6th consecutive months. That's mainly due to a continued slump in manufacturing activity, according to the country's Ministry of Economy. Singapore's economy grew 0.3% on a monthly basis in the second quarter, higher than expected. It contracted 0.4% in the previous quarter. This price growth helped Singapore avoid a technical recession. It's a fresh start that's at Australia's central bank. Governor Philip Lowe, the man who has overseen 12 interest rate hikes in the past 14 months, will be replaced by his deputy Michelle Bullock. Greg Navarro has more from Sydney.
Central banks around the world have been somewhat unpopular over the last year or so, as many have overseen multiple interest rate hikes to counter rising inflation, and Australia is certainly no different. The federal government here deciding it's time for a change with the Reserve Bank of Australia's leadership. RBA Governor Philip Lowe, who has overseen the country's central bank for nearly 7 years, will not be appointed to a second term. The head of the Reserve Bank is not someone usually known to the public, but that has certainly changed here since May of last year when the RBA started lifting the nation's interest rate from a historic low of 0.1% to counter rising inflation. That started a very unpopular run of 12 interest rate hikes in 14 months to the current rate of 4.1%, adding thousands of dollars a month to people's mortgages. A review was ordered earlier this year into how the RBA operates, suggesting a number of changes. Experts believe Lowe's fate was sealed when he said publicly in 2021 that interest rates here would not rise until at least 2024. That prompted a lot of people to take out mortgages. It also prompted Lowe to take the extraordinary steps of apologizing publicly for his comments. While the RBA operates independently of the federal government, experts point out that the government here has chosen to replace the central bank governor in the midst of a very unpopular rate hike cycle. Now, Deputy Governor Michelle Bullock has been named as Lowe's successor. She will become the first woman to head the RBA when Lowe steps down in September. Greg Navarro, CGTN, Sydney.
You're watching Global Business. More to come after break. Germany unveils its China strategy, stressing no desire for decoupling but the need to reduce economic dependency. China says Berlin's de-risking anxiety will be counterproductive.
From the 1,035-kilometer railway linking China to Laos, facilitating connectivity and boosting economic growth in the landlocked Southeast Asian country, to the joint China-Saudi Arabia photovoltaic project to harness renewable energy in the oil-dependent kingdom. The Belt and Road Initiative has come a long way since it was first proposed in 2013, complementing the development strategies of partner countries and building on their existing strengths.
开创合作共赢的新模式。
The Belt and Road Initiative, linking the world in the pursuit of common prosperity for humanity.
Germany has issued a strategy paper for relations with China. It points to a systemic rivalry with China and a need to reduce risks of economic dependency, but highlights Berlin's desire to work with Beijing on global challenges such as climate change. In response, Chinese embassy in Berlin said that viewing China as a competitor and systemic rival does not accord with reality, nor does it benefit either side's interests. Trent Murray has more from Berlin.
This is a strategy we've been waiting now for several months. It was finally unveiled today, all 40 pages of it. This is very much Berlin's new blueprint, in its view, for its relationship with its top trading partner, China. Now, we know, of course, that this report focused heavily on economic ties, given those trade links. On the question of economic ties, the strategy says that economic and trade relations remain an important element of bilateral cooperation with China. But on that question of systemic rivalry, the report says that this systemic rivalry is reflected in the fact that Germany and China have different concepts of the principles governing the international order in important areas. Now, we know, of course, Chancellor Olaf Scholz, when this report was launched, again spoke heavily about those economic ties, but he said that, frankly speaking, in his view, Germany needs to be careful that it's just not too dependent on any one trading partner. He said in a tweet, the goal is not to decouple from China, but we want to avoid critical dependencies in the future. Now, there were areas in there as well where Berlin said there were disagreements in certain policy areas. Very much this report trying to strike that balance between maintaining those strong economic ties, but also understanding that there are areas of disagreement. Some of those, according to this strategy, include disinformation, intellectual property rights, peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait, and the application of universal human rights. Roughly an hour after the strategy was released, the German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock gave a keynote speech on Germany's relations with China. Let's have a listen to what she had to say.
We can't ignore the huge Chinese market, and we don't want to. But at the same time, it is equally true that the Chinese market also needs the European one. Therefore, we cannot be indifferent to the tensions around Taiwan. A military escalation would also be a danger for millions of people worldwide and therefore also in our country.
Well, not long after it was released, we got a statement from China's embassy here in Germany. I will read that to you in full. The embassy says that forcibly de-risking based on ideological prejudice and competition anxiety will only be counterproductive and artificially intensify risks. The embassy goes on to say that it hopes Germany views China's development rationally, comprehensively and objectively, and that many of the challenges facing Germany have not been caused by China. Now, one thing I will say is that there is very much an overarching theme in that strategy, that even in there are areas that are agreement or areas where there are disagreements, that what is really fundamental is dialogue and communication and making sure that those channels of communication remain firmly open between Berlin and Beijing, of course, to avoid any sort of misunderstandings or miscalculations on some of these key geopolitical issues.
Beijing says Germany's forcible de-risking based on ideological prejudice and competition anxiety will be counterproductive. China hopes Germany can view its development objectively and comprehensively and formulate a rational and pragmatic policy.
Taking competition and protectionism policy in the name of de-risking or reducing dependence, and pan-securitization and pan-politicization of normal cooperation will only be counterproductive and artificially intensifies risks. In fact, China and Germany have far more consensus than differences and far more cooperation than competition. Both sides should be viewed as partners rather than rivals. Amid the current complex and volatile international environment, we hope that Germany can view China's development objectively and comprehensively and formulate a rational and pragmatic policy towards China.
For more discussions on Germany's new China strategy, we're joined by Chen Jiahe, Chief Investment Officer at Nova Arcane Technologies. Thanks for joining us, Jiahe. What's your understanding of Germany's newly published policy to China, not to decouple from China, but to reduce dependency on China?
Good evening, Junfeng. Well, I think that is kind of understandable that Germany is worrying a bit about the trade between China and Germany, simply because the trade between these two countries is just very large at this moment. According to the data, China has been the largest trading partner for Germany in the past 7 consecutive years, and the total trading value between China and Germany reached almost 300 billion euro last year, 21% more than a year ago, where Germany has exported around 100 billion euro to China, including items such as machinery, automobile, high-end industrial equipment, etc. And the export from China to Germany reached around 200 billion euro. So we can see that this trading relationship is just so strong and actually have significantly benefited both economies.
China's embassy in Germany has responded by saying that China is a partner, not a rival, in dealing with challenges. So what are the main challenges that Germany is actually facing now?
Well, there are multiple challenges that Germany is facing right now, but none is from China. You know, the Chinese export, mainly concentrating in textile and some other industries, are actually the products that Germany is not very good at producing. China has been an important market for German export. The main challenges that Germany is facing right now, I think, is concentrating in a few aspects, including the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine, the unstable political status within the European Union, the inflation, which came back to 6.4% in last month, slightly higher than the data in May, and don't forget a volatile global energy market.
Right. And Germany has made it clear that it doesn't want to decouple from China, and you just stressed that China-German economic ties benefit each other with trade topping $300 billion each year. What's the cost of decoupling?
Well, there has been a very large rising for the trade between China and Germany in the past few years. The growth rate of total trading value between the two countries reached 15% and 21% in the past 2 years. This is a magnificent growth rate. You know, it is not a growth rate between two small countries, but it is a growth rate between two very important countries in Europe and Asia. So you can see that when Europe is still suffering from the headache of both the war and inflation, and there is a large riot in France today, the importance of this trading relationship is really significant. I mean, Germany can't lose it.
When Chinese Premier Li Qiang visited Germany last month, he warned Berlin against using de-risking in name to carry out decoupling. Do you think Chinese companies enjoy a level playing field in Germany and the EU?
Well, if we talk about things like political environment or fair playing field, I think the market that Chinese companies are now worrying the most is the U.S. market. You know, since many Chinese companies were pushed to get delisted from the U.S. market, and U.S. investors are banned from investing in many Chinese companies, the confidence of businesses has actually dropped a lot. From this point, the feeling of China's businesses about Europe is better compared with the US. Of course, if we compare the relation between China and Western Europe and ASEAN countries, then the latter seems like more promising. But on the other hand, the legal environment is more transparent and stable in many European countries. So I think Europe as well as Germany is still a very important market for our businesses.
Thank you very much for your analysis, Zhi Jiahe. He's Chief Investment Officer at Novaark Technology. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Our reporter Sun Ye has visited the Beijing China-Germany Industrial Park, where Chinese and German businesses say cooperation continues to be full of potential.
This is the Beijing China-Germany Industrial Park, not yet 2 years old. It already hosts some 90 German companies with an annual output of over 35 billion yuan. The industrial park says it plans to play what it calls a pioneering role in Beijing's opening up and international cooperation, aiming to be home to some 200 German companies by the year 2025.
Hao Lijie on the management committee of the industrial park says it's on course to meeting the 2025 goal, which includes an annual output of 80 billion yuan. He says it's in part because Chinese-German cooperation continues to focus heavily on what he deems are the future needs, from smart manufacturing, digital economy to new energy vehicles.
北京中德产业园所在的顺义区
Smart new energy vehicles are a key area for technological innovation. Our industrial park is located in Shunyi District, home to many of Beijing's high-tech and advanced industries. The over 100,000 enterprises here provide a solid foundation for industrial cooperation in the park. At the same time, companies such as Mercedes-Benz and BMW have attracted companies relevant to this industry here. Here, China and Germany's industries will work together and further upgrade smart green manufacturing.
Companies like heating technology manufacturer Viessmann have a long history in China, and it also makes sense to be even more invested in the Chinese market and its smart green vision.
So we will continue to invest into this market. And in investments, we differentiate into several areas. One is bringing our newest technology from Germany to China. But the other one that is equally important is setting up more R&D and development capability here in China, because the China team, our team, knows best what Chinese users really want and need. And maybe there's a third element to this as well, and that is service. And I think it's not just for China and for Germany. I think many countries all over the world are striving to decrease their carbon footprint. And where you can have the biggest impact is, of course, in the world's biggest economies. And that is, right now, one of the top economies is China. So if you want to make an impact to contribute to environmental protection and carbon decreasing, you must come to China.
The industrial park has also been working to better support in policies and facilities so that growth will keep for the long haul. Sun Ye, CGTN, Beijing.
Watching Global Business, coming up next. Many Chinese cities have developed innovative ways to boost their nighttime economy by combining business with culture, tourism, and sports.
.360-degree profiles of industry movers and shakers, tech mavericks, and policymakers. We drill down on their success. We ask how they set strategy and how they navigate in an increasingly competitive market. Real talk, real business. Join the conversation. BizTalk, only on CGTN.
China is developing innovative ways to boost the nighttime economy. Many cities are combining business with culture and tourism to stimulate consumption. Shanghai, the city that never sleeps, ranks first in China in nighttime activity. Its total nighttime consumption reached $68 billion last year, with over 60% of the city total consumption happening at night. And in the historical city of Xi'an, a variety of activities such as light shows and camping festivals have injected vitality into the city's historical blocks at night. And a survey on the consumption habits of urban residents in China shows that 60% of urban consumption occurs at night. The Shanghai Wild Animal Park has announced that it will extend its operating hours until 8 p.m. every day until the end of the month. This is the fifth summer that the zone has offered visitors a chance to see the animals at night. Our reporter Zhang Shixuan went along to see what it's like.
It's evening.
Boys and girls.
Oh ho ho! Let me see who is coming. Are they bringing us snacks?
Give me some. I could use a snack. Not this one. I want something better.
Oh, what a beautiful evening.
Yeah, it's getting cooler.
Time for our evening party. Today I found a really nice place over there.
Many wild animals come out by night, like tigers, lions, and raccoons. So now is just the right time to see them moving. 师傅你好。 Offering food is the best way to get the big boys to come up close. Bears were even hanging on our bus to get a snack. And the tigers were excited about the extra meal too. They're really good at catching the meat snacks. Others prefer to stay on patrol around their territory, making sure things were just as they liked them to be. Leopards jumped onto the roof of the patrol car to make sure it was not getting up to trouble. The lions prefer to travel in pairs for companionship, no doubt. All of them seemed more active than during the day, and that made the visitors more active too.
I come from Huangsha. I arrived at the zoo at 4:30, just as the weather was getting cooler. It was too hot in the afternoon, so I waited until the evening and brought my wife and 2 children.
As night falls and you take a walk along the river, you can hear the sound of thousands of birds flying back to their own little island. It's as if they're chatting about the fun they had during the day. It was a special time for the visitors too.
It's my first time coming at night, and it's very special. It's all more beautiful in the evening. Some of the animals were sleeping during the day, so I took another walk now. Many of them are awake now and are walking around too.
And let us feed a giraffe. See, she is already staring at me. Who can get one? Oh, they're very elegant.
Especially many wild animals have the habit of hiding by day and coming out by night. They look sleepy and lazy in the daytime, but it's during the evening that they behave most naturally. They're searching for food at night, and you can see things like the raccoons washing themselves in the pools.
Visitors can also take a boat to look at some of the other animals carefully, as they are divided onto different islands to keep everything friendly. In the dim light, it can be hard to catch some of their lovely movements. There are more than 20 species along the river. Some of the most nimble are the clever monkeys, which know just how to catch their snacks. It's already 8 p.m. We're perhaps the last batch of visitors to the zoo today, but the animals have been so cute that I really don't feel like ending the tour yet. Still, it's time to say goodnight to the big buddies and to the little ones too. 张世璇 ICS for CGTN Shanghai.
Well, Zhang Shixuan had a very good time in Shanghai. Over in the southern city of Guangzhou, a park is also attracting visitors at night, where thousands of fireflies light up the dark. Cao Chufeng has the story.
I'm now in South China National Botanic Garden, one of the perfect places to view fireflies. We still have 2 hours before the sun goes down, but dozens of people are already here to make sure they get a good spot. All of them are firefly lovers, and many of them are also quite passionate about photography. They've come for the challenge of trying to capture the shiny, tiny little light glow in the dark.
The most difficult thing about taking a photo of fireflies is that they come out at night when it's very dark, and we can't set up any lights because light affects their living habitat.
And of course, the spot here attracts children hungry to catch a glimpse of the natural light show.
My son had never seen fireflies before, but when he saw someone else's photos of them, he thought it looked romantic and wanted to experience it for himself.
Ji Shenma and her colleagues at the South China National Botanic Garden have been organizing outdoor tours, and viewing the fireflies is the main highlight. She says the insects are attracting a solid number of visitors to the garden.
We've started to have later closing hours since May 9th to allow people to view the fireflies. In 17 days, 25,000 people have entered the park after the normal closing time, and another 35,000 daytime visitors stayed until night.
Finally, as night falls, we got the chance to see the site. It's a beautiful scene, only possible in a clean, healthy environment.
Fireflies are very sensitive to the environment. They can't live in polluted places, so we call them indicator species for the environment.
Some places in China, such as Jingshan County in Sichuan Province, have already introduced targeted environmental protection policies, hoping for more fireflies. Cao Zhufeng, CGTN, Guangzhou.
With that, we'll wrap up this edition of Global Business on CGTN. I'm Zhu Feng. Thanks for watching, and you have a very good weekend.